know how to fight it.
We're in a time of crisis. Protect the sisterhood at all costs.
We should be leaders of the Imperium. This complacency is a disease.
Hard choices will have to be made.
When have I ever shied away from hard choices?
You think you can replace me?
I always wondered what your greatest fear would be. Now I have seen it.
Hello everyone, Dan here from the Next Issue Podcast. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the second episode of Dune Prophecy, Two Wolves. Before I get deep into any spoilers, this show has continued to be very interesting. I think it's a little bit slow paced and there's a lot of things to unfold as we try to really, I think the show's trying to do the job of introducing a new audience to Dune while still trying to capitalize on everything that we know happens from the movies. And I think that's a tough act to balance, but overall, I feel like this is working out. I think that a lot of it has to do with some of these storylines that I'm just really enjoying. There's a mystery of how some of these powers and these abilities work, not just from the sisterhood, but also from Desmond, who we found out in the last episode. You know what he did if you've seen episode one. So I won't talk about that till I go into spoilers. But yeah, overall, this show continues to be very strong. Great performances. I think it is hard to maintain the look of Dune and for a TV adaptation of something, right? Especially compared to the films. The films are so beautiful. I think Denis Villeneuve does such a good job with just making sure that there's a specific certain look. But I think the show has that freedom of this being set 10,000 years in the past. So yeah, maybe things don't have to look as sharp or as good. There's definitely a lot of things where you're like, oh, this is definitely a TV show, but I still enjoy it. So we're gonna get into spoilers. Let's talk about what happened this episode. Some great performances here once again. So first they continue. They bring back someone to like almost like a corner from the sisterhood, like maybe somebody that's trained a little bit more in that to check out Tasha's remains. Because obviously they don't know what happened. They're not aware. They only know that but they only know that a child was murdered in the planet with the emperors, but they don't know what's going on. So we do see that in a conversation later on, Desmond is talking to the emperor, and he realizes that he's the one that did that to the child. It's really like Desmond's not hiding anything, and I think that bravado is really cool. Of like, I'm here for this, and you'll come around to see things my way. So I think that's pretty interesting. They end up putting him in like this really cool suspended animation floating cell. Not suspended animation, just like it's like a cell, but it's just kind of floating up there. I think a little bit of Star Wars. I think there's a Kenobi scene where he's kind of floating out there. Uh, then we also have Constantine, who is having a little bit of sexy time with the Duke the Duke's daughter. And he kind of spills the beans about them having Desmond. So obviously this sets up a chain of events. There's definitely a lot of characters to keep up with, so I try to be concise in my notes to make sure that I talk about everything. We also see that there's a whole storyline with the sisterhood that I'll talk about in a minute because it's something that we kind of keep going back and forth. But it's kind of like the culmination of this episode, so I just figured I'd talk about it all at the same time. The Emperor is confronted. VALYA shows up, so Mother Superior VALYA shows up to tell them the news about Kasha, which is very interesting. But in the while as this is happening, he's also being confronted by the father of the child because they want to question. Everybody now wants to question Desmond now that he's apprehended somebody, right? But of course, because of the sisterhood and the sisters being there, it is now kind of agreed upon that VALYA will be the one that talks to Desmond, which is a great confrontation. Even if it's just verbal, like they just have a way with the words. Like they're both trying to find out what's going on. Desmond obviously has a bit of an advantage because he kind of doesn't care, right? VALYA is the one that has a plan that is going to ruins, and as long as Desmond can disrupt that, I think he's happy. Uh, we do also find out that Kieran Atreides, who was training the princess in the last episode, and also I guess they're kind of an item. Um, he's working for with this rebellion to try to maybe rise up against the Empire, which is interesting. Like, who is this group of rebels? We met the bartender last with the blue eyes. We'll talk more about her as well. Her name is Michaela, because she's also a sister posing as a rebel. So it's really cool to see this sisterhood just having they've infiltrated every aspect of this society, from like the empire and the rulers all the way to the people that are trying to maybe overthrow those rulers or change things up, so that way they can really guide everything. Their hand is in everything. So all right, now we move on to the story with the sisters. Lila, one of the young sisters in training, is asked to reach out to her grandmother. We find out that she was uh, the she's the granddaughter of Raquel, who was the mother superior from the flashbacks from the old timeline, where Valia kind of took over. But it's a ritual of poison and pain. I think the idea and the themes of pain coming back are really interesting in this in this story, and just all throughout Dune. I think that's something that kind of happens very thematic. It looks like the poison that they use in the movies to awaken. I think what's her Rebecca Ferguson's character gets that put into her eyes as well, and I think also eventually Timothy Chalamet, Paul, he also has that, and it awakens something in them, right? Um, it turns into a horror scene as Lila is going into, like, I don't know, it's this ethereal plane where she can communicate with these other voices, but we don't know exactly who it is. Uh, it is originally her grandmother, and we see her there, but then Dorothea, the daughter that we saw Valia kill in the first episode, she kind of takes over. So I guess there's no control as to who you're talking to when you're in that state. I found that very interesting. So yeah, it is wild. Um, she tries to kill her. Dorothea ends up in some kind of coma. I thought she was dead, but then after looking at some scenes from the next episode, it looks like not Dorothea. Lila ends up in some kind of coma. After looking at some scenes from the next episode, I see that it appears that she's not dead. And then to kind of close things out, Desmond is released, and he's the Emperor kind of asks him to help with the Duke, because obviously he's losing control of everything, right? He's gonna lose the armada that he was promised. He needs that to keep Arrakis in line. So Desmond begins to burn this man from the inside, which he's not the best character anyway, so like I didn't feel too bad for him, but it looks painful. So now the Emperor picks Desmond, and he kind of dismisses Valia and the Sisterhood from helping them out. So they begin to lose their control. That it's crazy. We see one last scene of Valia confronting Desmond. She tries to use the voice on him, and it doesn't work. So like, where is this power coming from? What does this power mean? Very exciting stuff. Yeah, another really, really interesting episode of Dune Prophecy. Like I said, I think the show is definitely a lot more slow paced than you would think. But I think it's a good, interesting story and a mystery so far. So I'm not too upset about the pacing. So if you're watching the show, let me know what you thought about it down in the comments. As always, thank you for watching, everyone. Remember to share, like, subscribe, hit the bell so you know when we go live. That is most Saturdays, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. And stay tuned. We have more comic reviews, trailer reactions, TV recaps, all that fun stuff here in the channel. Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye-bye.